Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. This is Eyeshadow Palettes Revisited, where I go back to some older palettes I still love and adore. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. This video is a little bit later than planned because I wanted to post this in March, but I ran out of time. But you know, it's only the start of April, so I can still update you on the 5 older to me palettes that I went back to in March, and I'm wearing one of the looks with these palettes today, and I have done, I've taken pictures of all of the looks I've done with these, so I can also update you on how I feel about these now. Do I still love these? All of that jazz. So let me just get to it. Before we get into the video though, it may be good to know who I am if you've never been here before. My name is Maaike, I live in the Netherlands. I have had fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, and this greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I have been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love trying out eyeshadow palettes, Essence and Catrice, and getting the use out of my makeup. So if that's something you're interested in, then I do hope you would like to consider subscribing. So yes, I selected 5 palettes in March to go back to, and they all were very spring-esque, very colorful, and I've been really enjoying that. By the way, if it sounds like there's water running in the background, or if you can hear some clicking noises, that's because I'm running the dishwasher at the moment. So there could be a bit of background noise, but there's nothing I can really do about that, I'm afraid. But yeah, the 5 palettes I had in here were the Juvia's Place, the Douce, Nabla Soul Blooming, Zoeva Melody, a repotted eyeshadow palette, because this isn't Colourpop, but it's Juvia's Place shades, and BH Cosmetics Blueberry Muffin. Maybe this could still be available, but I'm pretty sure that everything here has been discontinued, so you can no longer buy these. However, these are some of my favorite eyeshadow palette brands. These are some of my favorite color stories as well, especially for the spring season, which is why I wanted to go back to these. So let me tell you about every single one of them. Let me start with what's on my eyes today, because that's easiest to talk about. And that is actually the palette that I repotted. This used to be Colourpop of Quartz, which I rearranged to take some of the shades out and put them with the greens from the Sprinkle a Little Magic. And then I used the remaining pans to repress some of my favorite shades by Juvia's Place. These are shades from the Masquerade, the Magic. I had the big size palettes back in the day when they did the huge sizes. And I think 1 or 2 shades in here are from the Royal Nubian as well. So I have an entire array here, and I played with all 5 of the purples that are essentially in this palette. It's a really nice cooler tone color story with some of these grayish greens, a green, and then we have these purples. So you cannot buy this, it doesn't exist, it's never existed. And mine looks horribly messy, as you can tell. Repotting eyeshadows sometimes does that to your palettes. This one kept cracking on me until I gave it a dry press, and that's why there is so much staining. I cannot get it off. So that's a downside of this lighter palette, but here's what I ended up doing. I decided to try to play around with eyeshadow placement again for myself in the past couple of weeks. I don't have the most perfect eye shape to do a lot of really creative looks. I feel that there's only 2 things that look really good on me, which is like a matte in the crease and a shimmer from lash line all the way blended into the crease. That's what I've been doing a lot with the K-Beauty palettes I was reviewing in March. That looks really nice on me. And if I want to do something a little bit more smoky, a little bit of a cat eye, where I sort of accentuate the outer V. That's about as far as creativity as it goes with looks that can still work on my eye shape. I have hooded, deep set eyes. They're not fully hooded, but I definitely have like the fold of my lid goes past my like the cross section with my lower lash line, and I definitely have a lot of space that just disappears the minute I look straight ahead, which makes it super challenging to do a lot of the looks that you see a lot of really creative makeup artists people do on Instagram and TikTok. I've never managed to do that. But from time to time, I feel adventurous and I want to try some techniques. And something that's always recommended you do if you have hooded eyes is to first start with the crease and keep looking straight ahead in the mirror. So relax your brows and then start there. But then, you know, I'm pretty much already in my brow bone because apart from being hooded, my eyes are mostly deep set, meaning the top of my brow bone is just hanging over a lot, which essentially means to me, as I'm doing my makeup and I'm looking in the mirror, it feels like I'm putting color onto my brow bone. So I've tried doing that today by applying a crease shade here, but because I have so little space to blend, it gets messy really easily, and I found that out again. But I tried to keep that sort of like going towards the inner corner, like breaking it off here so I had some space towards my nose. And then I sort of brushed it out to create this to create a more smoky shape. Then I applied a shimmer in the entire space that was left. And I ended up using one of the shades in the inner corner and then like blending it all the way into that like line that I had there to make it more cohesive. And then I used one of the shades to like attach it here and go all the way around it. I started with the matte, but that one wasn't intense enough, so I intensified it with this shimmer, and that's the line that I created. I ended up putting this shimmer all over the lid. This is the one in the in the inner corner, and this is on the lower lash line. So I tried to do a little bit more of a graphic shape, and I think that, you know, for how challenging my eye shape is, it turned out to look pretty okay. But I just really, really struggle with blending and making things look blended if I do these kind of more graphic lines, because I cannot blend anything without like smearing it into my brows. So I tried using some of my smallest brushes, and I feel that that's why it worked. I have some from What's Up Beauty that they sent me in PR, and they were perfect for creating this. So yes, I do feel very chuffed with what came out today. I don't normally wear something this intense, because that's another reason why I don't like doing this kind of look on myself every single day. Despite the fact that it's like a true like full-on purple look, I feel it's also, if I were to do this with neutrals, it's still very full on and very glam, and I don't want that every single day of my life. Today I'm just lounging around. It's a Sunday, so I don't really need to go anywhere. So if this didn't turn out okay, it was just makeup playtime, and I thought it turned out to be pretty okay, and it was something different. So that's another thing I like doing with some of these older palettes, is to try and see if I can do other looks with them that I haven't done before. And I can safely say that this was definitely something I did, and I think I repressed it maybe a year and a half ago, and I hadn't really played with it since. So I wanted to make a point of using those Juvia shades again. Speaking of Juvia's, I played around with the Douce. This is a really pretty pastel palette, perfect for spring. And I just always love sticking this like pinky lilac shade in the crease. I don't know why. And I always love playing with this gray one as well. And I think this time as well, I put some of that light green on the bottom lash line because I love how these two clash. So it was a pretty easy look. I might have actually put some of the brown as liner as well. I don't remember exactly because it's been a week since I did that look, so I don't always remember. But yeah, this was really, really successful for me again. It reminds me why I love this palette. It's perfect for the springtime. It has these like sugar paste, like not quite pastel, but still pretty bright, and also quite neutral, because this peach and also this, and this, like if you were to like leave these out, it's a pretty neutral palette, I feel. So I just like those two colorful things because they're very unique in my collection. And whenever I reach for this palette, I want to reach for those shades. So if this looks like something similar I've already done before, then I do apologize, but those are just my favorite shades from this palette, and it's my main reason for picking it. So that's why I decided to go back to this, and I do really enjoy it. So yeah, Juvia's Place eyeshadow is some of the best, especially some of the palettes I still have in my collection. I have definitely decluttered some over time, but I think I want to roll in like a Juvia's Place palette every month now that I've tried these again, because they are really good. I think in the summertime, I'm gonna have to pull in the Tribe, because those oranges with the greens, it's very much summer vibes to me. So I think I want to do that, definitely. I also went back to another one of my favorite brands. They were bought by Makeup Revolution, so you can still find a lot of the BH Cosmetics palettes on that website, but this one, it was released, it was around for a few months, and then it was discontinued. What am I talking about? This is the Blueberry Muffin. This is the sleeve, because this is what the actual palette looks like. I feel they're a little bit different. And in here, we get essentially a neutral tone palette with blues. And I have a few shades in here, again, like with the Juvia's Place that I just love. These two in the middle. And then I always need to have some sort of matte. And I always go for the gray. But I feel that the gray is very limiting. So instead, I opted for this warmer tone brown looking shade. And these two browns both have a little bit of purple to them, which kind of threw me off the first time I tried this, which is actually why I almost decluttered this last year. Like, I put it in the declutter, said I was gonna declutter it, and then I decided against it when it was time to get rid of the actual products. Because here's what I do whenever I declutter things. I always keep it around for a few weeks. Like, I just stick it in a corner of my room. I don't look at it. And if I forget about things, I definitely know that it's gotta be gone. And this was one that I couldn't get out of my head. I was like, this is a good palette. I shouldn't declutter it. So that's why I pulled it. And now I'm really happy. So I ended up doing a look with this in the crease. And then I decided to put this teal shade all over the lid, which is not something I've done before with this as far as I know. Because I usually save this one for the lower lash line. It's perfect for that. And then I topped it with a little bit of this like duochrome kind of thing. And I also put this in the inner corner and really sort of carved out the inner corner. I think I used a little bit of this darker navy blue to add a little bit of a liner moment. And now I don't remember what I did on the lower lash line. I think I only used 4 shades from this when I was playing around with it. But yeah, really good formula. I really enjoy the Blueberry Muffin from BH. Because it doesn't have all of the blues I would necessarily want from a blue palette, I kind of didn't clock it, but if it's like neutrals with a pop of blue, then this does work for that reason. So I'm glad I kept it around. I really enjoyed the look I did with this again. It's some stunning eyeshadow quality as well, and it's one I want to keep around. And someone requested I go back to this one, so definitely let me know in a comment down below if there are any requests that you would like me to go back to. However, I just filmed all of my declutters for you and showed you that. And whenever I do declutters or I film collection videos, I'm always like, oh, I should really go back to this thing. So I definitely already had a bit of a wish list for myself for April. But if there are any palettes that you saw in my declutter that you know I'm keeping and you want me to go back to it at some point, then please leave your recommendations in a comment down below, because I would love to know what you would like to see as well. But the thing that was requested was the Zoeva Melody palette. The Zoeva Melody palette. I can't talk today. And I love this because it is really light. However, I went with this in the crease and it pulled darker than I thought from just looking at it in the pan. This has some really pretty shades. Whenever Zoeva still did these palettes, I really liked calling them the brand with the multi-chromes and the duochromes that nobody talks about. These aren't like the super shifty things that indie brands do, but if duochromes with a bit of sophistication was your goal, then these were really nice. You get 3 of them in here. You get this lilac shade, and also this lighter thing. And I think maybe the peach has a bit of like a peach to gold kind of flip to it as well. So some really pretty shades. You could go very neutral with this, but I always like using this in the crease, this all over the lid. I pop this one on the lower lash line, and I pop that in the inner corner. And I think I used a little bit of this shade to blend things out because this was so dark. And maybe this is lighter. I tend to skip these two and the 2 peachy tones. Those I don't tend to reach for a whole lot in here, but this is just a really stunning palette, and it's so great for fair-skinned people, and I really enjoy this. Sadly, Zoeva did away with all of their larger palettes, I have now found, even the ones they did later. They did a complete rebrand a couple of years ago. They went vegan, they're more sustainable now, and they only have their eyeshadow quads anymore. So another reason for me to keep to keep these really stunning eyeshadow palettes from Zoeva that they used to do a couple years ago. I had a bunch more than what I've shown you in my declutter. I did several videos in the past where I showed you all of the palettes I have, but there were a couple whose color stories I didn't like, and there were also a few where the quality wasn't like consistent with the rest. But this was one of the good ones, so thank you very much for requesting this, because I had a lot of fun playing with it again. And the final palette, I cannot do a spring season without reaching for this. This is the Nabla Soul Blooming. This is a stunning eyeshadow palette. It's long since discontinued, but there are color stories on the market that do similar things. So if the Lime Crime Venus 3, which I believe is still available, if that's something you can get your hands on, it has a similar color story to this. It's just that that is 8 pans and this is 15? No, 12. It's a 12 pan. And you're probably going to be surprised with what my favorite shades are in this palette. Because if you know anything about me, then you know I like cool tones. And this is definitely not a cool tone palette. This has quite a bit of warmth, especially in this half of the palette. And my two favorite shades in the palette are the two peaches. Yes, I've said it. I like the peaches in this best. I always use this one in the crease, this one all over the lid. I love using this like duochrome moment. It's like a periwinkle duochrome. It's actually quite similar to the one in the blueberry muffin, I have to say. I like using that in the inner corner, maybe sometimes like topped all over the lid. There are a couple of other like duochrome shades in here that are a little bit more subtle that can really give you that look. And I love using this darker blue as a bit of a liner moment, because this is like a blue that has a bit of purple to it, and these peaches pull very pink on me. So it's like a really soft peachy pink, and then blending this shade into it is going to make it look really purple. So it really comes together for me. I tend to ignore the browns in this, so I never really go for this or this shade. I do really like this bronze shimmer, because this has a bit of red running through it. So this is just, it's always been such a great palette for me. The color story may not be super unique anymore, but I still really like mine, and I really enjoy playing with this. It's like the perfect spring look every single time. Just those two peaches, the two periwinkles I somehow rope in, and then that like more intense navy purpley blue that it has. And it's really stunning. And like, this is why I kept the sleeve, because I really like this effect. And I like how we're getting a lot of the shades that you see in this floral design. They're actually in the palette, which is another thing that Nabla used to be really good at, is that their packaging really reflected the color story that was inside, which is always very satisfying when brands do it. So thank you so very much for joining me today. Those were all of the eyeshadow palettes I went back to in March. There were only 5 because I had 9 palettes to review in March as well. So because I'm reviewing fewer new palettes in April, I will be going back to more older palettes. I've selected some Huda Beauty things. I've selected some Menagerie things. So there are going to be more colorful looks because of my really great experience this month. I just want to use some of my favorite colorful palettes, and as I was doing my declutter, I just realized how little I reach for my little Huda Beauty 9 pans, as well as my Menagerie colorful palette. So I definitely want to make a change there. And then there was just the Lorac Pro 4, because that one is like part of me needs to declutter that, because I'm like, I haven't used this eyeshadow palette in forever, but I've only ever used it for a review and then forgot I had it, because I bought that at a time when there was so much eyeshadow coming in that I couldn't keep track of it. And since last year, I've definitely slowed down in how much eyeshadow palettes, like how many eyeshadow palettes I bring in every year. I mean, last year I still tried around 80, which sounds like a lot, but there have been years where I tried 10 plus palettes a month, like 3-4 years ago or so, I think. And I was trying to try everything, and I don't feel that that's necessarily the case. I'm definitely a little bit more critical of like trying to find things that I really, really, truly like, and that I know are going to be favorites, and not just buying things because it's going to complete a set or because it happens to be like the palette of the moment that everybody's raving about. I tend to only watch eyeshadow palette decluttering and collection videos very sporadically anymore. Like, I go through phases and I watch a bunch of them to sort of be inspired what palettes I might want to try, and very often the ones I would like to try are no longer available. But yeah, I have been going through a phase like that, so now there is a palette that has been out for a while that I did add to the wish list. I have a bit of a wish list of newer palettes I would like to get, especially because review-wise, I have now caught up with everything that I had brought in, and that was my aim. I did not want to allow myself to buy new palettes unless I like saw that I was getting through the things I had been like trying for reviews, and I had bought quite a bit over the Black Friday season, so I wanted to get through that first. And now that I have, I can start bringing in new things. So if there is a particular palette that you think I might like, that you want me to see, like you want me to review and see if I like it, like I mentioned, I did already put together a bit of a wish list of palettes that I would like to try and buy in the next couple of months to see if I can like rope them into a review and keep that review train rolling as well. But I like having the space now to go back to older palettes, because that was one of the aims. One of the reasons I started this video series was to try and trigger myself to go back to older palettes, because it's great having 200 plus 250 plus eyeshadow palettes, but if you never use them because you have so much new stuff coming in, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And especially things like what I've shown you today, some of my all-time favorites, something that I put together myself by repressing shadows and being able to make such a great cohesive look out of it. There's just something really satisfying about that to me, and I know that so many people who don't have these massive makeup collections are of course going to go back to all of their palettes. I mean, I tend to be a makeup reviewer, so I try a load of different things, but I do know that it's very much the reality of the most, like the regular consumer, you could say, to have only like a handful of palettes maybe and rotate through them. And that used to be how I tried makeup as well. During my work week, I would use older palettes, and then I would do looks with newer palettes on days off and whenever I had vacation. And then I got to a point where I had so many new palettes that I was starting to fall behind with trying to review them because I just didn't have time within that time frame to really get to them. So I've now sort of switched that round. But yeah, if a palette is one that I really, really, truly enjoy, I just want to go back to it and really get the use out of it. So yeah, I don't want to, the aim is to try and bring in fewer new things so I can really focus on the older things as well. So this video series is going to be more and more and more important as time goes on. So thank you so very much for joining me today. Thumbs up this video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make new videos every single week. There are 4. And we are going to be doing eyeshadow palette week this month as well. So if you want to hear me talk a little bit more about eyeshadow palettes, then definitely stay tuned, because I'm going to have a week dedicated with daily videos to nothing but eyeshadow palettes. So I hope you're here for it, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye!